Hi guys, welcome to the show. My name is Seb Ostrovich, aka the Voice of the People, and this is the Weightlifting House podcast. Hello and welcome back to episode number 7. For fuck's sake, Josh. Why have you got to laugh so much? Welcome back to episode number 7 of the Morning Brew. I can't get through it. I can't get through it with your face. This is the issue with doing video now. This is the issue. And everyone listening thinks it's just me, but they can't see what I'm looking at. You're going to have to go over to the YouTube channel to see this. Josh, I'm putting this in. This is just as some kind of punishment for you. Don't laugh on podcasts because I'm putting them in.
Yeah.
This is episode number 7 of the Morning Brew with your host, Seb Ostrovich, the voice of the people, of course, joined by the people's scientist, Joshua Gibson, who's having a bit of a moment right now. You might be able to hear him chuckle on the other side. He's doing his absolute best to not. I'm not quite sure why. We had a great 20 minutes talking, catching up, making sure we knew what was going on. We went live or started recording and he broke down, and he's now a shadow of his former self. He's a wreck of the people's scientist. He's the people's technician at this point. Josh, how are you doing?
I'm actually doing pretty well.
You are?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I'm excuse me. Sorry for that. I tend to think that I perform well under pressure, but
clearly not.
Yeah, sometimes I'm a reactive guy.
Yeah, clearly. Which actually kind of leads us into one of our questions, because we're going to be talking about Mike Teixeira's programming.
Yeah.
So this is the Morning Brew, and of course, normally this goes out to Patreon, but we have so many great questions on this week's episode that there's a good chance that this will go out to the main podcast. So that you guys can kind of hear a little bit more about how Josh and I do the Morning Brew. And if you guys enjoy it and want to listen to more, of course, you can do that after the show. Just follow the link down below. Some of the questions we've got today look really quite tremendous. We had probably too many to get through entirely, but we're going to start off with a few of them. So just to give you guys a bit of a taste of what's to come, we have... a couple of people actually asked, they wanted us to talk about, in particular, they wanted Josh to talk about, I don't know why, Mike Teixeira's emerging strategies to weightlifting. We also had, that was from Justin Negrete. We also had from Cornell George, he wanted to know about what he should be focusing on. He's got a front squat that is very close to his back squat. He's a strong guy, and he wants us to know, or he wants us to kind of talk about what he should be doing to remedy that, or whether he even should be remedying that. Christianovich Schindler wants us to talk about how he can get to a double bodyweight back squat. Elliot Gannett put a little bit of stuff up about Ilya, is it a publicity stunt? And also to do with the USAW cert. They're currently teaching the power position with the shoulders slightly in front of the bar, which is something that they never used to do. What are our thoughts on that? Michael Horner, aka the people's biggest fan, wants us to talk about just general foot movement in the lifts. His question was very vague, but we'll give it a go. And so many more that we'll try and go through. But before we do, one of the questions that came in, Josh, that I thought we should kick off with is Josh going to grow a beard? And if so, what type of beard is he going to grow? So, Josh, please kick off this very informative episode of the Morning Brew with a prophecy of the people's beard.
I won't grow a beard. I don't think I can actually do that. I tend to just kind of grow patches all over my face.
Oh no!
It's a very poor excuse for facial hair. I'm just kind of wondering why this guy wants me to grow a beard, or is wondering if I will. That's something I've been thinking about. I don't know, Seb. What do you think? Do you think I should?
I mean, I think
it?
the fact that you've just said that you can't. I mean, that's your answer right there. So no. Don't try it, because if you're going to look like a patchwork pillowcase, then don't do it. It's only going to work if it's all over. So stay away from it. Wait till you grow up. Wait till you hit puberty, and then maybe we'll come back to that question and get a real answer. But I think stay babyface, Josh.
Yeah.
Stay fresh shaven. You're looking good. You're rocking the fresh face.
Yeah, thank you.
That's quite all right. So should we just crack on with this episode? Because we've got a lot of good questions that we need to start tucking into.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah? Okay, cool. So the first one from Justin Negret says, can you talk about applying Mike Teixeira's emerging strategies to weightlifting? So before we recorded, we went through these very briefly, and I know a little bit about Mike Teixeira. I actually have a good friend who's a powerlifter who followed his programming for a long time. Deadlifted 310 at 83, like very, very strong guy. And I followed this is when I was working at the university gym, and I just decided I'm going to follow the bench portion of this program, which is obviously a wise thing to do, just pick and choose from various things. But I did like the RPE style training for the bench press from Mike Teixeira, and it had amazing effects. I mean, I couldn't bench 100 kilos, and then 8 weeks later, I benched 100 kilos for a set of 10. Like it did really well. But Josh, do you want to talk to us a little bit about what Mike Teixeira's emerging strategy is? Because you do have quite a nice explanation for it.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where to really tuck into it, as you've kind of said before, it's there's a lot there, and I think one of the best resources for people to listen to get an idea of where we're going to go with this question is the John Kiley podcast that we recorded. He does a great job of discussing kind of like I don't want to say the pitfalls of periodization, but the problems with periodization, the inability to create a long-term plan and rigidly adhere to it, and how that's going to typically lead to results that aren't nearly as good as if you're more flexible with your approach, right?
Right.
So that's why Mike Teixeira has adopted what he calls a bottom-up approach, where you're using information from that training day to guide decisions you're making about training later on. So,
and can I jump in and say, just to break that into what a lot of us know as, is that almost the opposite of how we look at Soviet programming?
Yes.
Where they'll take the 4-year quad and they'll break it down from there. They'll say, we've got the Olympics in 4 years, so we need to do this that year, this year, this year. That means we have to do this month, week, day, and rep. And they kind of do it the opposite way around, essentially.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And they would formally call it top-down planning, whereas this is a bottom-up approach. And it's not so much that you're taking... And I hope this sounds somewhat structured because I feel like I'm all over the place, but it's not like you're taking today's plan and influencing tomorrow's plan. It's more so you're taking the information from this training cycle each individual day, the response of the athlete, whatever you plan to track, because this approach requires data collection or data collection.
Right.
And then you're influencing the next mesocycle, right? So if we're looking at this single training block, that's going to help guide our next training block, which will guide the next training block. And we'll use all of the information collected to help us eventually work towards creating a longer term plan. So if we know what works this time, we can say, okay, let's try something else. These two things work. Let's string them together. So we're creating that long-term plan out of very short-term periods. I guess the emerging strategies comes from using emerging information. So taking into account how someone performs, because everything, and I guess it will really help to describe how Mike programs training. Everything is programmed via RPE, so rating of perceived exertion, which is a 1 to 10 scale that's been adapted from the Borg scale, which was 6 to 20, I believe. And I think had to deal with heart rate. But this is looking at...
I used that plenty of times during my degree when we had to do so many different tests. I would have training in the evening or something, and I'd have to go into a lab for human physiology or something like that, sports phys. And suddenly it's like VO2 max testing, and you get in groups of 3 and someone has to do it. And I faked an injury every week. And it's probably only fair that I have so many injuries now. It's because it's like the boy who cried wolf. I said I had an injury so many times, I finally got one. But yeah, that 6 to 20 is probably something that a lot of people have used before. But yeah, sorry, carry on. The 1 to 10 is the new RPE, at least the one that Mike Teixeira uses.
Yeah, so Mike Teixeira adapted that from the Borg scale for powerlifting. And basically it's just looking at how close to a maximal lift you're getting, right? So a 10
Right.
is maximum, completely maximum. You could do no more reps, no more weight. A 9, you could do one more rep.
Right.
Like a 9.5, you could do a little more weight, but no more
Yeah.
reps.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it breaks down. As you decrease in 0.5 increment, the weight could be added to the bar, and as you kind of go down in whole points, reps would be added to whatever you're lifting. So, for example, most of his work is done, I would say, between a 7 and a 9, a majority at an 8, which means you have 2 to 3 reps left in the tank. So what that really is threshold training. It's something that I think we talk about a lot. It's about finding weights that you could comfortably do, but are right on the limit of your abilities. And it's a way to keep you from pushing too hard in any session. Another reason he uses RPE as kind of the way to dictate the weight is because nothing changes from week to week. There's no intensity prescription. So he might prescribe volume, a set of 5 at 8, and then 3 sets of 8 at 8 as drop down work. But the weights aren't prescribed. So if you prescribe the right amount of work, ideally every week you would eventually get stronger and stronger because of the preceding stimulus until you peak. And that's kind of what they're looking at. They're prescribing a certain plan. They're seeing how long it takes you to peak on that plan. And then they're putting in something called a washout cycle, a pivot block, a cleanse cycle, basically something that's a completely different stimulus to increase the adaptability or to reinvigorate the adaptability of the athlete, to expose them to different movement patterns, different exercises, different program structures, workout structures. That way you pretty much just resensitize the body, so to speak.
And of course, there are, so I remember there was a big wave of the powerlifters at the university that I went to, and they all started doing this RPE program, this Mike DeShear program. And there were a few issues that I did notice it. One of them, of course, was if you're a beginner, you really have no idea a lot of the time quite how many reps you have left in the tank, what an 8 is, what a 9 is, what a 6 is, let alone a 10 or something like that. And another thing I noticed, or I kind of realized, was that, if your best back squat triple is 185 kilos, and it says to do a 9, so you're basically doing a double at 9. So, or you're doing, as heavy a double as you can. You could do 190 kilos, or you could do 200 kilos. And within that whole 10 kilo range, that's still all you can do for a double. So you could do the 190 and say, I couldn't have gotten another rep, so that must have been my max. But similarly, you could have done 195, you could have done 198, you could have done the 200. So I think it does take a disciplined or experienced athlete to try and get within that threshold, because the stronger you are, the bigger the gap between this is what my set of 5 is, this is what my set of 4 is, this is what my set of 3 is. And so within that range, there's a lot of places that you could go. And if you're always at the bottom of that range, if you're always at 140 instead of 160, even though, you might only be able to get another rep or whatever out, you're going to train slightly differently. So it certainly does take some intuition and some level of expertise to kind of pull this type of training off properly, I think.
And those are very valid critiques. One thing Mike DeShear always comes back a point he always comes back to make is that it requires a very close athlete-coach relationship. And it requires a lot of communication. Again, because this is very reliant on data collection. So if you're showing your coach the videos, he knows how you lift. He knows the speed of the bar on heavier lifts. He can kind of dictate or determine what RPE that is. Because again, it's not just to clarify some confusion, if there might be some for people listening. It's not a rating of perceived exertion. It's actual. How he uses it is how close is it to an actual max. It's not how close does it feel to an actual max. And I think that's something that a lot of people get wrong, is because the weight feels heavy. So they say, okay, that's an 8, but it's more so the reps dictate the number. It's not,
which is
how
why
the
you
reps
need
feel.
to know. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, they see it as 6 is there's some resistance, but it's okay. 7 is hard, 8 is pretty tough, 9 is very hard, and 10 is everything. Yeah. And that's really the wrong way to think about it. Yeah. And that's why you need to have a lot of experience. You need to know, this felt heavy as shit, but I've got 2 more reps left if I gave it everything and ammonia'd the hell up. So it's an 8. It's like that, rather than saying, it felt tough, so it's got to be a 9.5.
Yeah, and then on your second point, as similarly to what John Kiley said about periodization, it's not that the basic structure of programming is wrong. It's the planning. As with RPE, there are percentages, recommended percentages for each RPE. So if I look at a chart and I say a triple at an 8 RPE is roughly 91% of my best 1RM. I made that up. I have no idea if that's correct. But that's something to go off of to guide my training. But then I will I will change that based on how I actually lift, like how close to a 1RM I can perform 5 reps versus someone else. So I think that will kind of dictate the weights from there. But you can always fall back on those general guidelines. I think.
So can we talk about how we apply this to then weightlifting? Because, I mean, I program RPE for my accessory lifts when I give it to my athletes. When I see you write programs and when you've written stuff for me, you've put in RPE, and it's something that we will do, and we're doing a little bit for the Weightlifting House program on Patreon. Is that at least for certain exercises, you've got to have some level of RPE. So when I'm, programming bench press, I want the athlete to get in some volume without killing themselves. So if I give them, 3 sets of 6, I'm not necessarily saying 3 sets of 6, killing yourself by the final rep. I just say 3 sets of 6, RPE 7. You've got, maybe 3 reps left in the tank, but you've got 3 sets. Next week, you've got 4 sets. Next week, you might have 5 sets. Or next week, you have the same amount of reps, but suddenly it's RPE 8, RPE 9. It's just a nice way to slightly periodize things, especially with exercises which ultimately mean a little bit less to weightlifting, and also exercises that you might not know as a coach exactly what someone's 6 rep max bench press is, because we just don't do it. So it's just a good way to give someone a rough idea of this is how it should fit. I think what's interesting that I think we should talk about is how can this approach be put towards something like the snatch and the clean and jerk? I get it for the squat. I've seen it done. Everyone listening can kind of have a good idea of, it's what I used to do on the Mike to Shear stuff was you go up to a heavy single, maybe RPE 9, and it might be a pause. And then you go down to, and you look at the chart because it's got this cool chart, and you do, a set of 3 sets of 8 at RPE 7 or something like that. And you get the volume in bit. But how does that transfer to the snatch? Do you have any experience of programming it, or should it be done? I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, and I guess what I was trying to do really is set us up for understanding the basic principles underlying this approach.
Right.
And I kind of wrote some of these down. The biggest thing here is that nothing is changing from week to week. So every microcycle stays the same. There's no change, and that's why the RPEs are prescribed the way they are, is because it allows you to express strength as it's developed. So if I'm always doing something that's 2 reps from failure, if I provide the right stimulus, I should get a little stronger next week, a little stronger the week after, a little stronger the week after that. So the weight on the bar is going up, and eventually I'll peak with that microcycle. I'll have to cleanse my body, so to detox, whatever.
Sure.
And then restart another microcycle or whatever, however I structure it. I'll have to start a new program. And these are called developmental cycles. So it's a developmental cycle followed by a washout cycle, and it's repeated. And then, so how that's, and then I think the biggest thing, or the next thing to take away, is that there's no taper. So when you start to learn how to peak an athlete by exposing them to this stimulus so many times, I know that in 36 exposures to this stimulus, the single stimulus, they're going to peak. If I program in a way to get to that competition on the 36th exposure, they'll do really well. So that's the idea, is that we aren't changing anything. So training becomes more and more predictable.
Right.
How we use this in weightlifting is that we just don't prescribe weights, or we prescribe them in a way that's static from week to week to week. So a lot of what Travis Mash does, I guess, is kind of rooted in this, or what he did. I don't know how he programs now, where you're doing a heavy set and you have back off work. And every week you just hope that the amount of work was enough to get them stronger. and then you continue that until they've kind of fizzled out, they've peaked. And that does take a little bit of pushing the envelope too far to where they maybe start to decline in performance or something. But you figure out how many weeks it generally takes them to get to peak performance. You run a cycle that's really different. So maybe you clean and jerk first, you snatch second, you squat last, you squat first, you do lateral lunges, you do forward, forward and backward lunges. You do some type of training that's different in structure and in exercise selection. The way intensity is dictated on this approach is by exercise selection. So if we have a competition snatch at for a max single, that's going to be heavy. So if we want a lighter cycle that's a little more hypertrophy oriented, maybe we do a snatch triple, snatch set of 5, and it's all to max, and then you drop down and you do back off work. So again, I think the key tenets are that there's no change from microcycle to microcycle, week to week, within one training period, within one training mesocycle, and then that you run it until it's ran its course, so to speak, and then you do something different. You change it when it stops working, and you don't change it when it is working. Any questions?
Like it. No, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. And in many ways, it's kind of what, I mean, it's very much like what I've seen you program for a while. It's something that I've adopted to some extent. I've used in the past a bit. And you might see it with something like a complex. And you push a complex to something that's pretty heavy. And like you say, you prescribe some back off sets. And you just kind of hope. I mean, and you'll write it in the programs. We do this complex to a heavy set on a Friday. But you kind of say, don't push it too much. This is kind of RPE 8. Like, whatever that really means in a weightlifting sense, it's RPE 8. Like, it's tough, but, if you went balls to the wall, you could have done a little bit more. And then the back off sets are going to be a little bit lighter. Next week, you go and you do it a little bit heavier, and that means, again, the back off sets will be slightly heavier. So you're always increasing the stimulus through this essentially max effort and then back off work and the snatch and clean and jerk. I'm a fan. I like it.
Yeah,
it's cool.
I think it's really difficult though. Like in theory, it sounds very easy to do this. I don't know how you could ever decide if that snatch was, a rep from failure or like 5 pounds from failure. You could prescribe the number of misses, but then you'd have to work up to a miss. What if you have like a silly technical miss? It actually is kind of challenging. So you have to have a good coach-athlete relationship. I think that's very useful. I think having someone to watch you and say, hey, that's probably it for the day. Pack it in, do your drop sets, let's go home. Because if you're sitting there and you're like, well, I really want to make this, and you're too bought into the weight, you're not bought into the program, that's where it can go wrong.
That's the issue. I've seen that happen before with this. Okay, let's move on to the next one. So Cornell George says, what are your thoughts on an athlete that front squats are creeping up on the back squat? I have a 195 front squat and a 203 back squat. Wondering if I should try to push the back squat or focus on front squats and not care about how close they are. So Cornell, he front squats 195 and he back squats 205. We spoke about this. We kind of wanted a little bit more information from him. So we did ask him, what are your main lifts and how often do you squat and pull and all that sort of stuff, but we didn't get a reply. So we'll try and do our best with the information that we have. But you and I both said the exact same thing, which was, I guarantee he doesn't clean and jerk and snatch a high percentage of his front squat. And you just know when you've seen athletes, I mean, I know enough athletes like that. They might even look kind of technically proficient. And they might be technically proficient, but they won't snatch or clean and jerk a high percentage of their front squat. Part of that is because, well, their front squat is so close to their back squat, it's close to their maximum weight. But really, it's not that. Really, it's the fact that they're incredibly strong with an upright torso, and they're not particularly strong with a flexed hip or with any hinge hip, essentially. That's why, Cornell is strong in the front squat. He stays upright. He can use his legs predominantly to lift the weight. In the back squat, naturally, you're going to tip over a little bit. The back takes a little bit more, and the back just isn't strong enough to take that much more, hence the 8 kilo difference. So what he should be doing, I don't think he should necessarily be doing more front squats or more back squats. I imagine he should be doing more pulls. He should be doing more work to get stronger with some level of hip flexion, rather than being upright all the time. Do some RDLs. I would have thought something like RDLs and, snatch deadlifts, clean deadlifts. That would be the thing that's going to increase his strength enough so that he can snatch and clean and jerk a higher percentage of his front squat. Because, like I said, I guarantee he doesn't at the moment clean and jerk 80% or snatch over 60% of his back squat or whatever. And I think also if he did that, he'd probably find that his back squat did go up. I'm sure he doesn't need his front squat to go up. His front squat could probably stay the same and everything else would come up, but he has to get that back squat up. And the only reason he can get the back squat up and not the front squat is by strengthening the back. So RDLs, snatch deadlifts, clean deadlifts, hip extensions. That, from the information that we have from him, seems to be the way I would go with him as a coach. What do you think?
Yeah, this is really interesting because I was once at this point where I could back squat, I think, 186, and I could front squat, 170, 171, something like that. And
sort of 15 kilos, yeah.
Yeah, it's like 90% of my best back squat I could front squat. And
I
think the way I was able to change that is to really get myself strong in the proper positions in a back squat. Like you said, I would always kind of revert to, and this wasn't because I had the luxury of having the bar in front of me. When I had the bar on my back, I got tipped forward and I'd have to use my back. And I think it really just came with time, doing the reps properly, strengthening my hips, like getting my hips really strong so that I can keep my hips extending out of the bottom, right? Because as you said, your knees want to come back and then a lot of the weight kind of shifts back to your lower back and your hips. If you can engage your hips quicker, keep your knees forward longer, it can really help. So you want to get the most out of your quads that you can. So I just did a lot of pauses. I just did a lot of higher rep work, focusing on movement, because I was in a situation where I could essentially RDL 185 or 10. So I don't think I had any posterior weakness. I think it was just a movement issue, like a coordination issue. So maybe back squat more, but with a little bit lower intensity, focusing a bit more on movement.
Maybe some tempo work.
Some tempo work, yes, some pause work. Maybe you're just not squatting frequently enough. Maybe you're doing one back and one front squat session per week. Try increasing that to 3. Get a little bit of a bigger stimulus on the legs. That may help. Again, it's so difficult to say with the information that we have because I think we did chat about this. What if he was front squatting once and back squatting once? I mean, you're giving equal time to each lift. You can't expect them to be wildly different unless you've already had some disparity. So if you want to specialize and get stronger in one, just do it more.
So I mean ultimately I think if we were to see Cornell's lifts, I think he might look efficient and he might be efficient with the strength that he has. It's just that the strength that he has is so dominant in this one position, which is a vertical squat, all in the quads essentially. And so worrying about what to increase, the back squat, the front squat, I think is more relevant. It's about being able to pull more. That's how I would kind of see it. And also, it's not that you want your back squat to be way further ahead than your front squat, because actually you don't. You do want your front squat to be close to your back squat. You look at most of the top weightlifters in the world, they front squat 90% or more of their back squat. Like, it's not that uncommon. It's very rare that people have, what a lot of lifters in the USA and the UK, a lot of kind of novice intermediate lifters have, which is a big disparity between the front and the back squat. Like, you don't want to have that. You don't want to be a 120, 160 front to back squat kind of person. You want to be a 150 to 165, 150 to 170. Like, it's not the worst thing in the world to have a close front squat to back squat. So work on the pull. That would be my tip. But I'd love to get some more information. So Cornell, put a little bit more stuff there, and maybe next week Josh and I can touch upon it. We'll watch some of your videos. We'll get a little bit more information about how often you train, all that kind of stuff, and maybe try and go into this a little bit further. Yeah,
and as you said, you don't want that disparity, but you don't want it because you're so strong in both lifts. Excuse me, you do want the disparity because you're so strong in both lifts. You don't want it because it's like a movement quality issue or a weakness of it's some certain muscle group or it's very loud.
Because I'm pouring the coffee.
Yeah.
Josh, it's the morning brew. It's literally in the title.
Cheers.
How could I not? Yeah, cheers. Is that your Yeti cooler again?
And it has a cafe mocha in it.
Mocha. Have you noticed I'm drinking out of my Mr. Strong mug to remind me of strong days past?
Were you ever strong?
I think I was, in a weightlifting sense, no, but in a world sense, yeah. Like I was stronger than basically everyone who isn't a weightlifter or high level athlete.
Everyone who isn't a weightlifter.
but you know what I mean? Like I think if you can, I power snatched 100 for 3.
Yeah.
Power cleaned 125 for a triple. Like that's pretty above your average strength level for a person. I'd call that kind of getting there.
Why'd you immediately go to powers and not the full lifts?
All right, I cleaned 147. That's okay.
146?
I don't know, Josh. It's literally been so long since I could lift. 146. What's your clean?
145.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, it can be 146 or 147. It doesn't bother me. It's more than you.
Yeah, I know.
By a kilo.
I was it's a little off topic. I was talking to someone yesterday, and she was kind of in a similar position. I think one of the most difficult places to be in is to be getting stronger consistently, reliably getting stronger, seeing all of your rep maxes go up, seeing your squats go up, feeling stronger, and not to see that transfer quite yet. Like it's almost like a limbo, and it's like I feel good, I feel strong. Snatch is the same, clean and jerk's the same. Like
I've never had that.
Yeah.
I've never had that. Yeah. Never in my life. I've never had my squat go up by 5 kilos and not PR'd my snatch by 3 and my clean by 4. It's literally that. It's 60% and 80% of my back squat goes straight into my snatch and clean and jerk every time.
Yeah.
And it always did. I remember the first day I went to the gym to do weightlifting, I maxed out my clean. I'd never done a clean in my life. I did a full clean, 80 kilos, maxed out my back squat, 100. 80%. I'm right there. And I remember it, like when I could back squat 125, I cleaned 100. When I could back squat 150, I snatched 100, which is 66%, so that's pretty good. And I could clean about 120. So I've always been like on that 60 to 80% all the time, which is why I've so much of my weightlifting philosophy, because it's influenced by my own training, has been about, like Dr. Carl Pierce says, become efficient at the movements and then become as strong as is humanly possible. Because for me, when I back squatted 150 kilos, I could front squat 135 and I could snatch 100. It's like no level of technique is going to get me to snatch 120 right now. Like I could have Liu Xiaojun technique right now and not snatch 120. Maybe snatch 110 because he's a freak, but not 120. But the thing that will get me to snatch 120 is to back squat 190. So everything about my training became, let's just get very, very strong. And that's what I did. I started getting stronger and stronger and stronger. I was on a good roll. I was enjoying it. I was PRing all the time. And then, you know what happened. You've experienced this too recently. Injury struck. And you got to take some time off and reassess and learn how to live life without weightlifting for a while. Which clearly I didn't do a good job of, because here we are talking about weightlifting and have been doing so for the last almost 2 years. But did my best, but I've never experienced that. I don't know about you. Have you? You kind of have, actually.
Yeah, I mean,
when you first got on Glenn's program, you got very strong.
Yeah,
I didn't quite see the transference I think you wanted to. But you did get strong. You got good at squatting.
Yeah, the most frustrating thing about that is, and we just talked about how powerful change is with the Emerging Strategies program. In a story time, I guess, but like my squat was going up. I was getting stronger. I did Glenn's programming and hit a 5 rep max, like a 12 kilo PR. And then I want to
say did you hit 185 for 5 or 6 or something in the back squat, weighing like 85?
Yeah, it was.
Did pretty well.
It was 395 pounds. I think it was like 178.
Yeah.
18. No, it was almost 180, something like that. Yeah. 85 kilos, and I worked with him for months and months after, and my squat never moved after that. It was one of the most frustrating things in the world.
But But then a couple months later, then your front squat moved.
Yeah.
Remember,
Yeah.
your front squat, then the back squat stopped, and then the front squat went from 160 to 186.
Yeah, hit 186. That was when I was maxing out twice a day, 6 days a week in the squat.
Dude.
Literally just maxing all the time.
It's funny, like my squat responds best to maxing out twice a day. I'm telling you, whenever I've done max out my back squat or front squat every day, my progress is great. I just then get hurt like a couple weeks later or a couple months later. But there were times during that program with Glenn, I PR'd my front squat twice in a day. I woke up Monday morning, went in, we would have power snatch to max, I'd do it, hit something decent, front squat, get a 1 kilo PR, go home, come back in, front squat in the evening, hit another PR, and then max my snatch and clean and jerk and do, 95% every time. And I kind of like that. I really like it. I think if I was able to be very healthy all the time, I would just max out my squats a lot. It's not going to work forever. Eventually, you become so efficient at the movement, and your neural pathway is just lit. It's just perfect, and you've got to actually build some new material to work with and develop some quality movement within. But I think for a good while, I would just go heavy singles. Like for me, that worked well, but I got hurt a lot. The two main times that I tried it, I got hurt a lot. So I probably won't ever really do it again. But I know that if I can stay healthy, that's the thing that I would probably go to.
Yeah, I think you would do really well on the house program.
Dude, you don't understand. You don't understand. I went in today. Today, my last ever day coaching CrossFit. Yeah, I went in. Thank you.
Speech.
Okay, well, guys, it's been a blast, but I can't stand the way that you do your snatches and clean and jerks, so I'm gone. Peace out, bye. No, CrossFit's cool, but what was I saying? What were we saying?
The house
program.
Yeah.
I went in, I coached my CrossFit, and then I saw the videos. I was watching the videos of people lifting, and I was like, I love the program. Like, we'd been talking about it for a long time. We'd been going over it together. You'd come up with this draft. I remember we went through it and we picked it apart and we made changes, and it's just perfect. I love it so much. And I was looking at it, I was like, I just have to do this. So there was a guy squatting 40 kilos, CrossFitter, 40 kilos, big lift, big back squat for the guy. And so I just said to him, do you mind if I just do a quick back squat with it? I haven't squatted below parallel with any kind of weight in a few months. I've been doing powers. You've been giving me some powers and stuff, but I unloaded the 40 because I just felt good. I was like, I just know this isn't going to hurt. Squatted all the way down, and then I paused for about 5 seconds because if I pause, then standing up makes it even more painful. I started to stand up. I was like wincing, waiting for the pain. Nothing. And I was just like, I could have. I'm not joking. I could have cried. I didn't. I'm probably going to cry now on the podcast, which is awesome. But no, I was so happy. So then I grabbed a bar. I warmed up. I did some bar work on the snatch and the clean and jerk for 20 minutes just on the bar. I thought to myself, don't fuck this up now. Don't load weight because no one cares about you snatching 40 kilos. I was influenced by watching Ilya because he's been doing so much bar work on his Instagram story recently. I watched that and I followed along. And then I did some air squats and loads of upper back trap kind of work. And I'm feeling fresh. I'm feeling good. And I just want to get on the house program. Want to get on it. I'm seeing the results of people. It's been like a week and a half and people are squatting well. I mean, some of the girls that you coach who are doing pretty similar programs, some of them are doing the program. They've already PR'd their back squats.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I need to get in on this.
Yeah.
I need to do this. Like the 4+ or the 1+3 and the sets of pauses on every single rep and like the sets of 8. You've been doing big sets of 8 on a Friday or Saturday. Saturday.
Yeah.
Like I'm looking at it, I'm like, dude, I got to be doing this. But I'll be there, dude. I'll be there. It's coming.
It is a great program, and I don't think there are enough posts on Instagram to showcase kind of the results we've been seeing. But Yeah, I hit 150 for 8 in the back squat, and it was like really easy. So I think 165 will probably go on the last week.
Is that what you're hoping for?
Yeah, I think it's doable. I hit 160
and
for
with
6,
that, just to bring that back to people for the first question that we went through, that's kind of like an RPE system right now for our squats. Like there's a percentage range, there's like an RPE range to kind of be squatting in for these sets of 8. But if you want to have a feel of what RPE-ish works for, at least for one of the days of squats, you can see it on there. And the first week is free. Anyone can see it. So even if you just want to have a look, you can have a look at that program on Patreon. But I'm just going onto Instagram because there were a few people who posted, and I'm gonna shout them out for doing so well, if I can find them, which I probably can't now because my phone's not working. So that's awesome. But Josh, you're enjoying it, right?
Yeah, it was really fun. Those front squats are fucking brutal, man. The 5-second pause plus 4. Like I did 140 and it took my soul. But then after that, I was like, I want to go up. I was being reasonable. So I said, okay, it's my last drop set. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pause the first rep for 10 seconds. And then I'm just going to go. Okay. I'm just going to go into like a flow mode.
What do you mean? You're just going to AMRAP
state. No, I'm just gonna make the first rep so damn hard that like I have to get into this like
right.
This optimal challenge and yeah, exactly what it was. So I paused.
Meditation. It's getting rid of everything and being in the moment.
Yeah, so I threw.
And when you're pausing 10 seconds with 140, that's meditation right there.
Yeah, and
I promise you're not thinking about your laundry.
and yeah, so I came down. It was a drop set at 90%. That's what we do. We do one top set, 2 drop sets.
Right.
I paused the first rep for 10 seconds, and it was beautiful. And then I was feeling so cocky. I paused every rep after that for like 3 to 5 seconds. And it was so hard, but it was so much fun.
God damn it. What's your best pause front squat? Because I'm terrible
It's
at
over
pauses.
170. It's like 173,
really?
Yeah.
I can't pause. My pause front squat is less than my clean. There's no way I could pause in the front squat with my clean.
Yeah.
But like you and I are kind of different. Like you catching super low, but if I catch the first bounce on every clean, I don't think I've ever not caught the first bounce. Whereas you get slammed with a heavier weight, like 85%. You might get a couple bounces in there before you get up. It is kind of it's funny because like you move really nice. Like there are some things with me, the things with everything. But I've often looked at people like you and my housemate George, who technically is pretty good, but has to get like 3 bounces before he gets up. What is that? What the hell is that, Josh?
I think a lot of that had to do with, at the time, I had just a wicked arm bend. Right. Because now my arms are straight, and I've cleaned 136, and I stood it up really easily. It just fucks with your timing and the bar path so much.
Yeah.
Like people don't get it. When you pull your shoulders back early and your arms start to crank, you're going to kick the bar out. It's going to just rock you. You're going to get loose, and you have to fucking fight your way up. So
because if you get back behind the bar too soon, you add this horizontal movement to the bar. That bar's going forward, and then trust me, it's then coming back, and it's coming back at you. So when you catch it, if you get that first bounce and start to stand, you will fall backwards.
Yeah,
like you're going to fall on your ass. So you kind of have to catch it, absorb it, get a bounce, get another one, stop the momentum from going back, then get the bouncing going again, and then come up with it. And I think you might be right. I think that's possibly what it is.
Well, this is a scenario where we're talking theory to practice, and I've noticed in my time coaching and lifting, and it's not a lot of time. I'm not going to say that I'm an expert by any means, but the straighter you can finish, the straighter you can pull the bar, generally everything else goes well. And I've seen that so many times where people lay back and they get this big bang and then everything kind of gets fucked up. You tell them to stay long, straight up and down, and then like magic, it's an easy lift. So,
but it gets rid of the variables.
Yeah, it
gets rid of all these random things that might happen, and it just every time at the very least that bar's straight. It gets rid of all of these other external things that can throw you off, and it just makes things easier. Like it's worth training.
Yeah.
To have a straight pull. Like I can't say it enough. Like it really is.
Yeah. I keep hearing these like big names or well-known coaches saying like you really need to use your hips or lay back or get behind the bar, whatever it is, stay back on your foot. And I just like, man, like I really want to think that, but I've just never seen it in practice work that way, at least with very novice and then intermediate athletes.
I want to know who you're talking about. I mean, obviously, so obviously John talks about it, but I don't think that most coaches share his view. I mean, Glenn disagrees, and Glenn's the guy who coached him. You see Glenn talk about how to do a high pull. It's on your toes with a shrug, elbows up, not back.
Yeah.
You look at most other coaches, it's finish as straight and vertically as possible. There aren't that many coaches, I don't feel, who say lean back, get behind the bar, finish back.
Or a couple, but I'm not going to call them out on the. Yeah, I'm not going to say it on the podcast. But
you're not going to call them out.
No,
you're going to set us up like that, and then you're
just
not going to call them out.
Just because it's, I'm not sure if that's their view. Like that's what I see, and that's what I believe they're trying to communicate. But I don't know if that's correct. So I'm not going to say that. Is,
I think line up 5 lifters and order them, and who looks the best to who looks the worst. I bet you and that coach rank them the same. We all want the same looking lift. We all want someone to look like Ilya. We all want someone to jerk like Kiley, and we all want someone to snatch like Blagoev. Like, we all know what we want. People just communicate it differently, and sometimes you can have an athlete or a coach who says it in a different way. They're trying to get the same thing, and they get the same thing because they're such a good coach. They just say it slightly differently. I mean, I know that if I started saying to people, get back really soon, get your shoulders back behind the bar, I can't work out how to say that in a way that's going to make it right. But maybe there are some athletes or some coaches who can do it, but I see it as you should try and finish straight. So that's what I say. That's what I get people to do. I like it.
All right. Yeah. So what's another question we can tackle that? So
another question, and before we do, I just want to shout out someone who's following the Weightlifting House program. The main reason is he created. Did you see this? He created an Instagram purely so that he could. This is what he says. He says, basically created this account to interact with the hashtag Weightlifting House program. My wrist hurts, so I'm not doing cleans for another 3 to 5 days. But he did then post some of this things. So he's doing power snatch plus snatch balance plus overhead squat, 72%, and he's looking good. And I just thought the fact that he has just created an account for this, just to interact with the Weightlifting House program community, that's got me kind of jacked up. So I wanted to shout him out anyway.
And just before we dive into the question, one thing I consistently see, I've seen with a snatch balance, just to clarify for people doing it on the house program, is just try not to jump. Try not to really like pick your feet up and slam them down. It's subtle foot movement. It's quick. Punch the legs, punch under the bar. That's really all it is.
Punch the arms. Yeah.
It's a little bit both.
I mean, all right.
I say punch the legs. I like that.
Punch the legs.
I think it just gives you an idea of like a quick extension. Like punch them, finish, and then pull under.
I like that.
Okay.
Another thing, and I don't know how you are with this, is I like to make the distinction between a snatch balance and a heaving snatch balance.
Yeah.
Because I see a lot of people, the snatch balance is there, and they do a heaving snatch balance, and they've locked out, and they're basically standing straight. And then they squat down with it. They like absorb it on the way down. What I do as a coaching cue, actually, for a lot of beginner lifters, is I have them stand with the bar behind the neck, and I get a PVC pipe, and I hold it at shoulder height, like an inch above where their bar is. And then I say, do a snatch balance, do not touch the PVC. And then that way they might extend with the legs a bit, but really they're just going under. They're not worrying about driving the bar too high. I think with the snatch balance, you should be trying to lock out and sort of, fixate the bar as close to the bottom of the squat as you can. If you wanted to get as much weight as possible above your head, maybe it's a heaving snatch balance. But I don't know. That's my point of view, at least.
Yeah, and it always, like you said, it depends on why you're doing it. Like, I feel like I'm in a position where more weight would be better, so I tend to heave a little bit.
Right.
But it's so light that I think if you just focus on moving fast, you usually won't have to worry about it.
Yeah, right. Okay, so next question, Kristianovich Schindler. He says, how do I get a double bodyweight back squat? Still 20 kilos to go. So we read this question, we kind of laughed because, we just need more context than that. How do I get a double bodyweight back squat? It's like, what? We don't know where you are. I mean, are you PRing month to month? If so, if you're only 20 kilos to go, then the best way to get it is to wait for 4 months, and then if you follow the trend, you'll have it by then.
Yeah.
So we did ask a few questions. We said, how much do you squat? What's your front squat? What's your back squat? How much do you weigh? And are you making progress? And Kristianovic said, so right now he front squats 138, he back squats 155. He's added about 10 kilos to each lift since October. So I guess in October he was 128, 145. Now he's 138, 155. And he weighs around 90. And he's gained about 4 kilos in body weight. So, I mean, looking at that right now, well, if you've gone up 10 kilos in a 3-month period, then you're going to get, I mean, you just got to keep going and you're going to get there. There isn't a program, there isn't like the double body weight squat program. I mean, I wish there was, because I still haven't done it. I still haven't squatted double body weight yet. I've been very close, but not quite, a couple kilos. So we then had to ask, what sort of squats have you been doing? Have you been doing high rep stuff? Have you been doing singles, linear periodization? What's been going on? And he said, right now I'm doing a sort of Texas method. So it's a 3-week block, 3 squat days a week. On the first week, he will max his 5 RM. The second week is 3 RM. The third week, 1 RM. So that will take up one of his squatting days a week. On another day, he does a 5x5 with 85 to 90% of the 5 RM. And then on another day, some easier front squats, 3 sets of 5 at 80%, which, by the way, 3x5 at 80% is very hard. That's not easy. But Josh, what are your first thoughts when you look at this?
I mean, he said he's put 10 kilos on since October.
That's good progress.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if that means and I asked you this question, did he put 10 kilos on in October or during the time from October to now?
That's what I think.
Yeah, and is it reliable? Is it like every time you test, you put 5 kilos on, so you've only tested twice? That's not bad. You know, you have, 4 more cycles to put another 20 kilos on? If you aren't making progress and you've done this over and over, I would say if you've run it twice or 3 times and you haven't seen any progress now, just change something. I mean, you can just change the rep ranges. You don't even have to change much else. Maybe do 8-5 with you could do any combination of things. Just change something.
8-5-3.
Something very simple like that. I'd hate to give a prescription out. Now, if I wanted to improve my single, I would probably do singles. But for most people, I don't, unless they're knowledgeable about their training or they have a coach that's a little kind of sketchy. So maybe I wouldn't do that, but just keep with it. You'll get there.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that is an answer that is, whilst it's true, it's frustrating.
Yeah. It's
frustrating. Like, it is. Like, people want to make progress faster. So trying to get a bit more practical, I think what I would do, if you are making 5 kilos or 3 kilos every 3-week cycle, keep doing it, because that's really, really, really good progress. And if I could get that every 3 weeks, I would never change ever. But if you're not making progress anymore, I'd make a change. So, maybe try a higher frequency, lower volume training program. So, squat 5 times a week, and you're just doing 1 to 2 sets a day of, 3 to 8 reps. And so over the course of the week, you're getting in a lot of volume, but you're not killing yourself. I remember when I did Texas, the 5x5 day, I literally wasn't ready to squat for a week. But I'd have to do the other 2 squat sessions, but I was just wrecked. Like, 5x5 for me, something about the way that I am at 90% of my 5RM, impossible. I just can't do it. So maybe look to do some higher reps. Like, if you're doing this program at the moment, it means you're testing your 1 rep max every 3 weeks, which is a lot. Why don't you spend 4 weeks doing rep ranges between 6 and 10, or even 5s if you're doing some tempo work? Like, that's one of the things that Josh and I like a lot is, sets of 5, but it's 4 seconds on the way down and 1 second pause, and you come up as fast as you can. That's a long time. Like, that's a lot of time and attention. It doesn't have to be 10s, but spend some time doing more of a hypertrophy block. You weigh 86 to 90 kilos and you back squat 155. So you don't have a huge squat. So I don't know exactly what you look like, but probably you don't have the biggest legs. Otherwise, you would squat more. I mean, bigger legs squat more weight. So spend some time in a hypertrophy block, do some eccentric work, do some higher rep work, do some sets of 8. I tell you what, 5 sets of 8 will fuck you up. And don't feel the need to test it. I mean, I used to always think the longer I go without testing it, the better it's going to be. And I would almost I'd almost not let myself test it. It's like, I'm gonna give it another week. I'm gonna give it another week, another month, another 2 months. I don't want to know. When I test it, I want it to be the biggest PR possible. So I just wouldn't test. I would just build and build and build. 3 6s, 5 4s, 3 3s, 4 8s, just constantly building and building some level of periodization, whether that's through just volume or whether it's through intensity, and then test it in 2 months. But don't test it before that, and let us know. And maybe it'll go up.
And there are a few things there. And my question would be, and this is just kind of trying to reframe your thinking, Kristjanovic, do you want a double bodyweight back squat? Right, or would you like to take a double bodyweight back squat for a set of 5? Because the single, I get wanting to hit a big single. I'd rather hit something that I want for reps and just show that I completely dominated it. That it's not a fluke. It's not just getting better at singles. It's like you said, getting stronger and developing that strength and muscle mass. And then the next thing I would say is try just doing some rep maxes and coming down and doing drop sets. I mean, if you really want to see an immediate increase, because I guess I differ from Seb in that I like seeing what I can do on the day. Right. I mean, that's not just like in the way I program. Like when I coach athletes in person, it's like, you did your volume, let's work up, you look good. I like doing that. Yeah. So I would do more of a rep max approach where I hit maybe a set of 5, maybe a triple, and then maybe a set of 8. Something similar to what we do in the house program. And then where you're at. And every week you can try and best that and get to a point where you're hitting that PR, I think, a little bit sooner. And you're making progress at the time. You're not just kind of spinning your wheels and saying, okay, I've done all the prescribed work. I didn't PR on PR day. I have to do another 3 weeks before I can see if I've made measurable progress again. I like to know on that day, did I get better?
Right. So have you ever run like one of those classic squat programs? Have you ever done smaller? Have you ever done Russian?
I did. So I did.
Have you ever done anything?
And I did the Russian squat routine when I was working with someone else. She gave me this program, and I ran it the wrong way. First off, I was doing 2 sets of 6. Did you start off with? I had a flip flop.
Oh,
I was doing 2 sets of 6 idiot. Instead of 6 sets of 2, and I got and it was so fucking hard because it was so damn hard.
So very quickly for people listening, Russian squat program, first 3 weeks you're only at 80%. 3 times a week, 6'2", 6'3", 6'2", 6'4", 6'2", 6'5", 6'2", 6'6". And then 6'2s, 5'5s, you go up. 6'2s, 4'4s, you go up. 6'2s, 3'3s, you go up. 6'2s, 2'2s at your previous max. 6'2s max. And that's it. That's your 6 weeks program. I haven't run it, but everyone I know has run it. And no one that I know has ever been able to do the 2'2s.
So here's the thing. That's what I was going to say.
You have to start with slightly less weight, surely.
You spend so much time, and I don't think that's for a beginner. I don't think that's for an early novice or an early intermediate. I think that's there
just to purely shock you. Yeah. That's a shock program.
Well, the thing is I don't want to spend 6 weeks to hit a PR double at like my 1 rep max. To me, that's not worth it. I don't think that's meaningful. And I don't think that gives credit to how much of a beginner most of us are, like how much we can, the rate of progress we can,
actually make
reasonably see over a 6 week period of time. Because I've seen huge increases in my lifts in that period, and it was doing higher intensity, similar frequency. But no, I didn't like it. I didn't have fun with it. It was kind of like how the Texas method was for me when I did something similar. Yeah. It's like 5x5, 4x5, 3x5, 2x5, 1x5. And it's such a build-up, and it was such a hard program. And then to miss a PR set of 5, cycle after cycle, it's just
heartbreaking.
It doesn't leave you in a good spot.
No, it doesn't. I've run Smolov Junior maybe. When I started out, I just loved it. Like, But when you start out, and everything works, and I loved it. I loved the whole. I loved the squatting volume. I love doing 4 sets of 8. I love doing 7 sets of 5, 8 fours, 10 threes. Like it's just the volume of it. I love squatting because I'd realized early on, to snatch 180, I'm gonna have to just be very, very strong. So I was like, okay, I just got to squat a lot, and that's what kind of Smolov Jr. did for me. I got my first ever 150 back squat with Smolov Jr. I remember I did but I know that's you're shaking your head. I can see you. That's why it's ridiculous. No one who squats 140 should be doing Smolov Jr. But yeah, I got from 140 to 150. I remember on the final day I had to do 10 threes at 135. I listened to it was like some music from one of the old John North vlogs. Me and my friend Ben were doing it. He was at like 180 or something for his 10 triples. He's strong. And I think it took us like 3 hours, maybe 3 hours to get through. Set 9, I missed the 3rd rep, and then set 10, I got all 3. So I missed 1 rep. And I had a 140 back squat. Took 5 days off. Came in, hit 150. I was pumped. And but then, that 150 is like, you've just greased the groove so much. You become so good at squatting that you're just ready. You have this small time. You have this small moment in time where you are primed to hit this squat. But a week later, if I tried to hit it, I wouldn't hit it. Like I wouldn't hit the 150 again. I'd hit 143, 144. I'd be where you'd naturally be after 5 more weeks of training, which is 3 kilos stronger than the squat, especially when you're that early on. So I found Smolov a lot of fun. But I've had athletes say to me, do you think I should do Smolov? And without a shadow of a doubt, the answer is no. It's the dumbest thing. You can't snatch and clean on Smolov. If you start doing normal cleaning on Smolov, you can't do the squats. And if you can't do the squats, it's just like, what's the point of doing it? Like everything that you do affects Smolov Jr., let alone full Big Daddy Smolov that I've seen people try and fail at hideously. But this question about how do I get the double bodyweight back squat, it's like I wouldn't look to a squat program like the hat squat program or Smolov or Russian or whatever it is. Just do your squats as you normally do, and just be methodical and be scientific about it. We know how to get strong. A lot of research has been done. I mean, if you need a clue, the strongest people in the world, and if you want to be strong long term, like you were saying, do you want to get it for 1? Do you want to get it for 5? You have to get muscle mass. You have to become a bigger, stronger person. You have to gain size. So don't worry about hitting the heavy singles all the time. Don't worry about just trying to get this one heavy single, this 20 kilo PR, double body weight. Try and do lots of work in the squats. Train your quads, train your glutes, your lower back, your hamstrings to be bulletproof. Get them big. Like, did you see that picture that Bruce Clemens posted the other day of a weightlifter and he was topless? His erectors were like slabs of beef sticking out of his back. It's like, he didn't do that from heavy singles. He did that from years and years of training, just getting, steroids probably, but like just gaining muscle mass. And that's what you've got to do. That is the way to get strong. That you're going to get your double body weight, and you're not even going to notice that you did it when you did it. You're just going to train. It happens when you train.
Yeah. That's a good answer. All right. I guess the only thing I would add is if you want to do singles, be reasonable about it.
Right. There's a terrific ebook. I think it's free from Greg Knuckles. I think it's called The Bulgarian Method, all about how to squat for heavy singles. So if you want to have a go, I do recommend that you read that. If you are big and strong, give it a go. Like, it's fun. Yeah. Just convert some of those massive legs of yours into a heavy single. It's great. But if you're in your first few years of training and you know that you need to be a weight class heavier, don't waste time with it. It's like, what's the point? What is the point? Get yourself stronger. It's a long-term game.
And
anyway,
I think what's interesting, if you want to take that a step further, just to rewind a little bit, read Squat Every Day by Matthew Perryman. I think that's right. I think Greg was inspired by Matt to pursue something like that. Great book, phenomenal book. I don't even think Matt's I think he's like a biologist or something like that. I don't even know if he's in sports, but what I do want to say is one thing I've started taking away from Travis and Sean, Travis Mash, Sean Waxman, is I've been thinking about like when to push the squat, like when to push the single, and when to kind of back off a little bit. So assuming you're a competitive weightlifter, I think this should be kind of thought out. I don't think you should haphazardly just start doing singles or just start doing like really pushing it to push it. See how it fits into the competition calendar, but I don't think you're likely at a point where it really matters that much. But just for people listening who have a number in mind, it's important that your snatch and clean and jerk are close enough to your squat that it matters that the squat goes up. Otherwise, you're really just spinning your wheels.
Right. And that's one of the things that Travis said. Like he's been Nathan Dameron's coach for a long time, but Nathan has never followed Travis's program. And Travis is there watching like, come on, you don't need to squat more. You know, it doesn't need to happen. Like, and that's what you're talking about. Like, weightlifters aren't trying to get their squat up to have a big squat. They're trying to get their squat up so that the muscles that they need to use to snatch and clean and jerk more get stronger. So if you can squat more, but suddenly you're good morning squatting it, or you're squatting 5 kilos more, but you added reps, or you squatted 5 kilos more, but you went wider with your stance and you pushed your hips back more, it's irrelevant. We're not after a big squat. We're after a big squat that converts into a big snatch and clean and jerk. That's it right there.
That's it.
Also, I realized that the real answer should have been how to get a double body weight back squat. The real answer should have been follow the weightlifting house program because the squats are blowing up on it. But,
and just for people that want to do the house program or don't want to do it, there is some sequential kind of I don't want to say logic, but it's sequence in a way that's going to make sense. So the next training program will be based off of the prior one, which will be based off of the prior one in the future. So there will be some sort of progression. We're not just going to jump ship and start doing block work and start doing hang work.
Oh, God, no.
We're going to peak you for the snatch, clean and jerk, and squat. That's a fact.
Yeah, that's it. All right, next question. Is Ilya actually going to compete again, or is this a big publicity stunt?
We talked about this.
Yeah, we did. I mean, I have some thoughts on it. I mean, I think that there is absolutely no reason why Ilya would be turning up to competitions and posting videos of his training on Instagram and on his story for a publicity stunt. What's the point? He's not making money by flying to Ashgabat. You know, it's not like he has tons of sponsors anymore. You know, he doesn't make money for flying to the 5th annual Qatar Cup in December like he did and not competing. Like, I think he's going there so that he, you know, as soon as he weighs in, that counts as one of his meets for the 6-month period. So he gets that in. I think he's going to try and compete. And also, like you said, and I don't want to steal your point, so I'm going to credit you with this, which I thought was great, is it's tarnishing his name. And it is. It won't tarnish his... If he comes back and he wins, it will have been the greatest thing ever. To watch him, you know, be how he is now, he looks a little bit weak, he's kind of more feeble, he's human. To see him then come back and conquer, you know, to beat Simon Martirosyan, or to beat Andrea Romnau, or someone like that. Like, if he comes back and does that, it's the best story ever. But if he's not planning to compete and he's just turning up and, like, we see him snatch 170 and he would have gotten beaten in the B session of the 89 class, it's like, that's ruining his reputation. He could have left in 2015 at the President's Cup with a 246 clean and jerk, a 191 snatch, a 437 kilo world record total, and left it there and died a legend. But he didn't, and there's a reason. And I see no good reason as to why he'd be doing this if he wasn't planning on competing.
Yeah, I mean, I have nothing to say to that. That's my opinion right there.
Right, and I think I was going to say another thing. Now, what was it? What was the last thing I said? Because I had a good point to make about Ilya. He could have ended. He would have been one of the best ever. Oh, I can't remember. But yeah, I mean, He's one of the greatest of all time. We are privileged to live in a period that has him competing in. We really are. Did he get popped? Yes, he did. Do we all love Karlovic and Kropati and Blagoev? Yes. Would they all be popped retroactively? Yes. Like, we're living through, the life of one of the greatest athletes in weightlifting history right now. He clean jerked 246 at 105. You look at the best clean jerks ever. You look at someone like Zakharevich, he clean jerked 250 at 110. That's not a better lift. He weighed 5 kilos more than Ilya. That's not a better lift. Like, Ilya is one of the greatest ever. And if Ilya lived in that era, I'm sure we'd be seeing him lift more. I mean, we know this. It's from the horse's mouth. Like, there are interviews with Pizarenko. There are interviews with a bunch of different athletes, Vasily Alexiev, where they talk about the drug use. It was rampant. There wasn't testing. Like, Ilya, at the very least, was subject to certain levels of testing. Should we have a clean sport? Yes, we should. Can we get rid of drugs? Maybe. I hope so. Probably not, but I hope so. Are people breaking the rules? Yes, they are. But you cannot deny that Ilya is one of the greatest of all time. And he wouldn't be turning up to training halls, snatching 140, and looking bad if he, for a publicity stunt. I'm getting riled up, Josh.
No, that's great. For me, just speaking as a spectator, it's tough to watch. Like, I really want to see him go out and do well because... Right. You watch him for so many years and you see him do so well and you see him at his peak, so to speak, and then to get injured over and over and to go out and not even show up just to weigh in and see him do like 30, 60 and think, man, this guy was on top of the world and now can't seem to put it together anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I thought that he wasn't even really in any shape. And then he posted some videos yesterday. He's doing a lot of, banded stuff. He's doing like neck flexion, neck extension.
I think he's just desperate.
Plantar. He's doing all of these. But and he's doing like standing on a Bosu ball with one leg and partial squats. I think what he's doing is he is bulletproofing the shit out of his body right now. He's doing, you don't disagree? I think he's doing everything. Oh. All the money. He's been training since he was 7 years old. He clean and jerk. He snatched 182 in training when he was 17. Like, he's trained for something. He's just getting rid of all the possible niggles and injuries. Stop shaking your head, Josh. and then he went to the gym and started training. He's just snatched 140 like it was nothing. He clean and jerked 160. The jerk, he threw it up and slammed it. He's strong right now. He's stronger than people realize right now.
Yeah,
I think he doesn't weigh 122. I think, like people are saying, that's not true.
I honestly just think he's throwing everything at himself that he can. He's just throwing shit into a blender and seeing what comes out. I think he's a desperate man. I think he's desperate for, as you said, he's trying to bulletproof his body. He's trying to get back in shape. He's trying to prepare himself to compete. And at this point, he's just exhausting every resource. I don't see the benefit any of that has. I don't think it's helping at all. But if it makes him feel better about lifting, that's great. But I don't think it's going to do much, like physiologically. Psychologically, probably.
Yeah. I tell you what, though. A desperate man who can clean and jerk 246 at 105 is a man that everybody should be scared of. Don't count Ilya out. Don't count him out. If Ilya comes back and wins 2020,
yeah.
I mean, I will streak across the stage. And I'm probably going to be there somewhere, trying to be like commentating or like filming or something. I'll be there somewhere. I'm going to run across the stage. Yeah, I still like Ilya. I still like him a lot. I speak to him occasionally. I tell you what, even still, like, I'm like, my heart goes places when I go on my Instagram DM and I see Ilya and I'm just like, oh my God, Ilya has chosen to drop me a message. Like, that blows my mind. And it's never much. It's like, he'll respond to a video with like a thumbs up or like a wow or a so struck. We once had like we were sending like hundreds of word messages to each other. I was writing them in Russian and getting them translated, but still, when I get a message from that guy, like I'm like a little kid on Christmas. Like, it's amazing. He's a true legend. We should all be honored that we lived in the time of Ilya Ilyin. All right, moving on. I recently took a USAW cert. This is from Elliot Gannett as well. They teach the power position with the shoulders slightly over the bar, so in front of the bar. What are your guys' thoughts on this? Vertical chest with the shoulders behind the bar in the power position, or shoulders slightly over the bar? You and I teach it slightly differently, but we want the same thing from the athlete. So let's just the context of this. USAW always taught how to do the snatch from the top-down variation. They've changed things up recently. Apparently, it's quite awkward. I don't quite know what it is, but it used to be position 1, the bar's in the hips, the power position, the torso is completely vertical. The only thing you have left to generate any upward motion on the bar is the extension of the knee. That's all there was. Now, as far as I understand it, there's a little bit of hip flexion, so the shoulders lean forward slightly, which means that you have knee extension and a little bit of hip extension. So, I mean, when I teach it, I teach without the shoulders coming forward. And I'm completely aware that when everyone does a lift, if you slow them down, when the bar meets at the hips, the torso is still slightly forward over the bar. I'm not an idiot. I know that that's how it is. The reason I don't, and I said this to Josh yesterday, is in the same way that when someone jumps forward in the snatch, I tell them to jump backwards. I don't mean jump backwards, but they're going to probably stop jumping forward and land in the same place. So I'm over-cueing something. And so early on, when I have lifters who, like most of us listening, are short in the torso, long in the limbs, I know that they're going to have such a... they're gonna want to hip extend everything. They're just going to be drawn to that just on their biomechanics. So I just over-cue them initially and say, look, when the bar is in the hips, you finish with the legs and you generate a vertical bar path. You jump. It's a knee extension. It's in the quads. And I know that as soon as we go from the floor, there's going to be a lot of hip involved. But just there it is, day 1, lesson 1, we're finishing in the legs. And I just so that sticks with them. I know that's not actually how it's always going to be, but that's kind of where I go. Josh, give a little bit about your thoughts, and then we can actually try and go a little bit further into the technique of what's happening at the hip.
Yeah, and I like the way USAW teaches it. I actually am certified as a level 1 coach. I completely forgot how their methodology in teaching the lift. Yeah. I know it has to do with powers and fulls and overhead squats and hangs, but I don't really remember. But I will say that I like the shoulders over the bar. It's kind of the same idea with block work. A lot of people have a tendency to pull back too early and then just get in a finished position that isn't realistic. So if you start someone off with their shoulders slightly over, in a good position to extend the hips and the knees, I think I can't prove this. I would imagine they'd be more likely to get there and then use their legs and hips properly. But I also get where you're coming from, because you need to teach them how to finish in that position, but it's not where you want them to be when they get to that position. It's just how to move from it. And typically, if you're teaching the rest of the lift correctly, they're going to have their shoulders over the bar. It's not going to be a big deal. Because we talk about this all of the time. Don't pull back early. Don't pull your shoulders back early at the knee. Don't pull your shoulders back early off the floor. And if you stay over long enough, if you're patient enough, you're going to get to the right spot, and then you know how to use your legs. It's reasonable each way.
I'd never thought of it. I'd never thought about it like that. I like that.
Yeah.
I'd always thought about it by having the upright torso as a good way to cue someone to finish with the legs. Finish straight. In my mind, it was like, as soon as we practice going from the hip and your shoulders are forward, all you're going to do is violently throw the shoulders back behind the bar, and it's not going to be right, and you're not going to finish straight. So let's just go with, you've already got a straight back, so the only thing you can do is keep it straight and extend at the leg. That's kind of what I thought. But listening to you talk about it, it's teaching the person, to some extent, how it feels to have the bar in the crease of the hips and still be over. And I think when people do the lift from the floor or from the hang, when the bar reaches the crease of the hips, sometimes they're already behind the bar. Sometimes they're already there. They're already in the wrong position. So I see some merit in a different way to what you're saying. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine. That's really it. That's all I got. I like I said, it's not so much the position. You're just teaching them how to move from it. If you can accomplish that, with your shoulders behind the bar, if you can accomplish that with your shoulders over the bar, as long as your pull to the hip is good, doesn't matter.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is how I kind of see it, is too much hip extension, bar goes, and by hip extension, I mean over hip extension, going too far back, getting the shoulders back behind the bar too soon, thrusting the hips forward. That's horizontal displacement on the bar. Only finishing with the quads is vertical displacement of the bar. The bar only moves straight up. And neither of them on their own are optimal. You need a bit of both to create the most amount of power. You just can't get too far skewed one way. I think if you get too far skewed in hip extension, hips come super far forward, shoulders get really far behind, the kind of arched angel thing that you hear people talking about sometimes. I don't think that's a good way to do it. So my idea has always been we're just going to over cue the other way, because we're never going to cue someone out of it, but most people are going to get there. If I have a lifter who has the build of Liu Xiaojun, I'm never going to say that to them, because they're going to go to their strongest path, which is not hip flexion, because like we've spoken about before, the moment you're laughing because you just made so much racket fiddling with whatever you're fiddling with over there. That sounds strange. Stop fiddling, Josh. They're not gonna hip hinge too much, because the moment is going to be so great. The perpendicular distance is bigger with someone with a longer torso. So they're going to rely predominantly on a knee extension finish anyway. But for most lifters, for you, for me, I just like to cue it like we're finishing with the legs. And when we go from the floor, you're going to have all the speed from the back anyway, and then you get to finish with the legs.
Yeah, I think we might be too zoomed in, because we're creating this illusion that the legs are going to create a vertical bar path. That's not the case. There's always going to be a slight bump out. And then the interaction of the arms and the bar past the legs and the hips, that's really going to determine where the bar goes. So I think you have to bridge positioning of the hip with the finish. Otherwise...
Hold on.
Okay.
You think that bar path is determined after the hips?
I think it's influenced after the hips by the arms.
Somewhat. I would agree, but I'd say minimally as compared to during the pull. Ground to the hip is where you decide really if the bar's going forwards or backwards. The miss comes before you've done... Like, you can watch a lifter and you go, yep, you've missed, before the bar gets to the hip. Because you start seeing the shift in their momentum, their weights moving forward, their weights moving backwards.
I'm saying,
if you can direct the bar up nicely with a good finish in the lower body, the arms will speed you going under, but they shouldn't have to do too much by way of actually moving the bar into the right place. They do a bit, but you shouldn't be reliant on that, I don't think.
I'm saying that if you look at an outline of the bar path from the side, you're going to see the bar come up or in. It's going to reach the hip.
Yep.
And there's going to be a bump out.
And it goes out.
And then it's going to go straight up, but it's going to hook.
Yeah.
The bar's not hooking because of your hips or your legs. The bar's hooking because of the movement of the arms.
Yeah.
And the pulling of the arms.
I agree.
Okay. So the bar, the upper body does influence.
Hold on.
Okay.
I don't think it's possible. All right. I can see you literally holding onto the desk. Very funny. You're getting sense of my humor now, because I kind of like that kind of joke. So I agree, the bar loops, and the bar doesn't loop because of your hips. Your hips aren't making the bar go out and then back in. They're making it go out, but not back in. But there is no way to go under that bar, pulling with the arms, to not let that bar loop back in. It's just what happens. It's the nature of turning over. If you turn over, the bar is going to come back in. It's just how it is. If you're pulling with the bar with the arms, at some point you're going to have forearms that are perpendicular to the ground, and so you're going to be acting horizontally on the bar, and the bar is going to come back in. I don't think it's like when the bar's up, you can pull the bar back in a lot more, or you can pull the bar in a little bit with your arms. I think generally you've determined it before the bar reaches the hip.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it really... But I think you can have a pretty big influence.
I think the arms just speed you up.
But if your elbow remains in line with the body during the pull under, right? So if your elbow remains right here versus here, there's going to be a different bar path, and there's going to be a different placement of the bar. So,
but hold on, hold on.
No. Let me just say, I think
not right.
I think we're speaking past each other in the sense that I'm saying the arms influence the path of the bar. You're saying the arms do a little bit.
But hold on.
We're meeting at the same point. The arms do contribute.
But hold on. Now, I don't know if... So you might need to even watch this on YouTube to kind of get it, because Josh just did a little movement to demonstrate what he was doing. And so I'm going to have to do it to make sense of it. If you have your elbow in line with your torso or behind, obviously the bar is going to be either further forward or further back. But you haven't put the bar there with your arms. You haven't put the bar further forward with your arms, or necessarily put the bar further back with your arms. That was from the hips. Your arms are going to be in the position that you put the bar in from your hips. Whether that's with your elbow high and your hand basically as close to your body, that's because you've done a nice straight pull. If your forearms are parallel to the floor and your elbow is close to your body, that means that there's a big gap between your torso and the bar. That's because you put the bar there poorly with the pull from the lower body with the finish. I don't know. I think the arms do predominantly making you a quicker lifter and not so much the bar path.
Or would you say they predominantly influence height, not necessarily trajectory?
I think they influence speed under the bar predominantly, height second, and bar path third. Because here's the thing. The only way for you to go under a bar any amount quicker than 9.8 meters a second, essentially just free falling, the only way you can add downward speed is with the arms. You can't add downward speed in any other way. The knee extension, the hip extension, essentially are taking you up. The only thing that adds to you going down is how quickly you can pull with the arms under. That's what the arms do. They pull you under. They position you under the bar right.
Yeah.
Fast.
And you know, this is just, I just rely on Greg Everett for some of this information, but he claims that the arms continue the upward movement of the bar, and
I think they have to.
They contribute to the maintenance of the speed of the bar. They might not add speed, but they help it maintain whatever it's had a little bit longer.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're saying the same thing. I don't think it's completely like the main determinant of bar path. I think you need to have a good finish with legs. But if your arms become flaccid and they're like noodles, the bar's going to kick out.
The bar might kick out more.
Yeah.
And you might jump out a little bit because of it. I agree with that.
Okay.
And you're going to be very slow under.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I hate the most, that I see with people, is like they make the contact and then they just fall under. And that's one of the things that Norick said that he noticed is one of the biggest flaws in American lifters, is they are not anywhere near aggressive enough or fast enough with our arms. After the contact, he says that American lifters are done. They make contact and they think they've made the lift. And he said the speed that you have to pull with the arms, he says this is what they're taught in the Armenian camp, and I've heard a lot of other countries talk about it. And it's not like Americans don't know this. Of course they do. I think that Norick just, talks about it more maybe, is that you've got to pull really fast with the arms. You've got to get under. And like you said, whether you phrase that how I phrase it, which is to get you under the bar quicker, whether you phrase it how Greg Everett phrases it, which is to continue the upward speed of the bar, or whether you phrase it how you phrase it, which is to put the bar in the right place behind your head, which essentially is putting yourself into the correct position under the bar. It's the same thing, but the arms do a lot more than people think. And I think, early on when CrossFit came out, 2007, first games, whenever it was, people were so scared of the armband that they said your arms are cables and they do nothing in the snatch and the clean. And that was just like this little mind virus that spread to all parts of the lift. And in the pull, maybe have no tension in the arms. I disagree. I think it should. I don't know many top level lifters who don't have some tension in the arms. I'm not saying they have a big armband, but they have tension in the arms. Their bicep is tensed more than their tricep is. I'll put it like that. But because of that fear of armband, people got a little bit too passive after the contact.
Yeah.
What is it? I can see you've just put on an expression.
The arms should still essentially be like cables because you're not intentionally adding tension to your arms. it kind of happens passively through tightening the back. The biceps tend to tighten
that's what
up.
I mean.
So they are in a sense like cables in that you're not actively trying to manipulate the amount of tension in them.
No, the issue is I think when the arms are like cables, I think two things happen. The scapula protracts, which you don't necessarily want.
You don't want that.
No. And because of the protraction of the scapula, the contact is then lower and it's not closer to the hip. I'm talking about the snatch. If you're able to retract the scapula, naturally just doing it right now, when I retract the scapula, I very slightly I get the very slightest kink in my bicep, or in my elbows. My biceps maybe flex a little bit. I'm not trying to flex my biceps. I'm trying to retract my scapula. And in doing so, it moves the contact point higher up in my thigh, or preferably in your hip, or only in your hip, really. And it will give you a little bit of a kink in the arms. I mean, watch Liu Xiaojun, watch Okulov, watch all these guys. There's a very slight kink in the elbows. They're not trying to pull with the arms, but they're just tightening the upper back.
Yeah, but I think...
Again, I think we have a similar thing on that.
Yeah. We like to argue. Yeah. I think what's funny is I remember when I was initially trying to learn how to lift, I was listening to John North's weightlifting talk, and
Same.
I was coaching myself, and he would say, squeeze your shoulder blades together. So I was literally protracting them or retracting them as hard as I could.
Retracting them. Yeah.
I was pulling them together as hard as I could, and I thought that's how you snatched.
Yeah.
I had for a long time I was clueless about that. I was so confused.
Right.
I was like, what do I do with my shoulder blades?
Yeah.
So I think language here is actually very important. I remember Vladimir set us up in a way that our shoulders were internally rotated, and our shoulder blades weren't quite as pulled back as you would normally see. You create tension, but you leave your shoulder kind of soft. You leave your arm soft, and then you move around the bar. You're not actively trying to manipulate the bar with the arms or the back.
Yeah.
That's something I've actually been trying to work towards, is just having a straighter pull, not trying to manipulate it, push it back. Don't know if it works. Don't know if it helps, but it's what I've been doing.
Right. No, I did the same thing. Like when I started, I've never had a coach. I've been self-coached the whole time. And I'm very grateful to having weightlifting talk as something to have listened to and learned from. And definitely I did learn a lot, but there were a few things from it that I probably shouldn't have taken as seriously. And those were things like, the shoulder blades should be completely pinched back, or more importantly, things like you want to pull back as hard as you can with your elbows. I remember one of the things that I heard was, it's back always. It's never up. It's always back. And now I think it's always up. It's never back. That's how I think of it these days. Or get the shoulder blades, get the shoulders back behind the bar, arched angel, all these sorts of things. Like, I think you get into those positions naturally a lot of the time when you freeze frame a lot of the top lifters. Their shoulders are back behind the bar, but they're not. That's just the nature of lifting a heavier and heavier weight in many ways. And it's what happens naturally as you pull under. There has to be a point where you are at least a forearm's distance from the bar. That's just what happens when you turn over. At one point, you're going to be a forearm's distance from the bar. It's just how it is. So you're going to be back behind it. But I think I stuck to those a little bit too much. I actively tried to arm bend because I just thought that was the way to do it. And it probably threw me off a little bit. But I mean, shout out to that podcast, man. That was my favorite thing. I used to love that podcast. Listening to John and Donnie and Glenn and then Travis and Ryan and Jared. And then I kind of stopped after that. But I love that podcast. That was a good show.
Yeah.
A damn good show.
I love how passionate they are about it. I think the one thing I've tried to avoid is giving concrete answers. I think it's very difficult, especially in a format like this, when you're getting a question that's like, hey, I need to improve my back squat. I'm not going to say squat every day, twice a day. I can't do that. I physically can't do that because you could injure yourself. You could already be doing that, and then I just don't give you any new information. You could be squatting once a day, and then you go to 10 times a week. So we're trying to just give ideas. We're trying to just give concepts. We're just trying to help you kind of think through whatever situation you're in. So I just want to make that clear.
Go to juggernaut.com or whatever it is. Buy scientific principles of strength training. Find online a way that you can download the training of a weightlifter. Is it Zatsiorski? I can't even think who it is. And read them, and you will learn just what it is that makes people stronger. And then instead of picking the program and picking Bulgarian or Smolov or Russian, you will see the theme that is throughout them. You'll see what the similarities between Russian and Smolov are. And then you can take that to something else, make it fit into your training, spread it out a little bit more, and do well. It's not like if you do Russian but you add in a fourth day, or you move volume from one day to another day, it would stop working. Like, it's just one way to express the many principles that we know work.
Yeah.
Read those books and you'll learn how to do it.
I think it removes some of the mystical error around something like a conjugate approach,
right?
Where it's like a maximal effort day and then a lighter day, and it kind of just balances out to where you're really trying hard, and then you're kind of recovering and focusing on movement and movement speed. So I think what that does is it just shows you that all plans are entrenched in a certain way of thinking, and it's kind of fun to create your own way.
Mm-hmm. It is, yeah. I love it. I can't tell you, Josh, how excited I am to be doing the squats. Like, I wanted to start today, the squats from the Weightlifting House program.
It's brutal.
I wanted to start today, and I just thought, well, it won't be brutal for me because I'm going to start very light. I'm going to start very light. But I just thought, all right, I've got another PT appointment on Tuesday. I'm going to go to that. I'm going to get a little bit more work done. I'm going to get some more expert opinion, and I'm not going to be an idiot. But I just can't wait. I can't wait. Josh, how long have we been going? Because I feel like this has been
It's like an hour and 38 minutes.
An hour 38, right. Yeah. Well, we've still got a fair few questions. Do you think we should really carry on, or should we maybe leave the rest for another day?
I mean, one thing we could do is post part of this on the Patreon and then part on the main page, or we can post it all. I mean, it doesn't really matter. I think we can probably answer one or two more.
Okay. Okay, let's do... Okay, so I'm considering doing the house program. You got the name wrong. Andre. You got to get the name right, man. It's the weightlifting house... Oh, it doesn't matter. I'm considering doing the house program because I'm pretty new to the sport, 4 months in. And I feel like there's lots of positional work and time spent in the catch positions, which I think would benefit me. My question is, will we get the chance to go heavy and test maxes fairly often? Weekly, monthly, yearly? Although it may not be optimal, I kind of need it once in a while to keep the fun in the sport. 2, do we have a hashtag so we can follow others doing it? And 3 is basically a question that we've already answered about the power position and should you be over the bar or not. So to answer number 2 quickly, we do have a hashtag. It's WL House Program, so Weightlifting House Program, but WL, just to keep it shorter. And then part 1. So Andre has seen the program, of course. The fact that he's even asking this question means that he's on the Patreon, so he's seen the programming, which is why he said that he thinks it's going to work because there's lots of positional work and there's time spent in the catch positions, which he's right. There is those things. We're doing a lot of pauses at the moment. Not only in the snatch and clean and jerk, but also we're doing some segment work in the pulls. But he says, are we going to get a chance to go heavy and test maxes? I mean, yes, and we do that. I think one of the things that we're talking slightly differently is you're not going to test your max snatch every week or maybe even every month, but you are going to push something to a max effort, whether it's a complex or not, every single week, basically on a Friday. I mean, Josh, do you want to kick it off? You've already done a couple of weeks of the program because you're following it right now. How have the Fridays been for you? How have you treated those heavier attempt Fridays?
Yeah, so with the intro week, I think we had 3 singles at 80% in the complex.
Right.
Today I'm actually maxing out. So my schedule shifted. I coach not this Friday, next Friday at a powerlifting meet all day. So I had to make sure I had Saturday off. So I'm maxing out today, which puts me a day ahead of everyone else, so I can kind of give some advice or answer some questions if anyone has any. I'm kind of nervous. I always have big standards, big expectations, and then I also think that I'm going to do like a piss job. So it's kind of it's kind of weird in that way, but should be fun. The one thing I will say, and again, I hate giving out recommendations, but as a beginner, should you be doing a lot of percentage work, I would kind of go by feel. I would do the complex. I would do, whatever the prescribed amount of sets is. I would start at the first weight and then just play around with it. Make sure you're moving well. Make sure every set is good. I would more so not focus on moving up when the program says move up, and just focus on moving up when your movement says go up. Like, wow, that was a great set. Every set's been good, relatively speaking for you. And then say, okay, let's add a few more kilos. I wouldn't be married to a percentage as a beginner. What I do when I have a beginner is I just give them an exercise I think they need, and I just watch. And we'll do a lot of work sets. And we'll just really hammer movement. There's a time to go heavy, and that's when the competition's close. And you can add in a max out day 4 weeks before, and you can kind of push it then. But really, man, just focus on moving well. Focus on ingraining good habits. Let the squats push everything else. Let the pulls push everything else. Use those as an ability to overload. Because the pulls are heavy. So don't think the snatch and clean and jerk need to be heavy when you already have that in a different part of the program.
I mean, I just because I don't mind saying what it is. I mean, the max out that Josh has today, I mean, it does say no misses. I mean, obviously, if you make a stupid miss, then whatever. So it's already saying this isn't going to be taking 5 attempts at something ridiculously heavy. It says it's a heavy set, but no misses. And we've got a snatch pull plus a snatch. It's 3-second pause in the catch of the snatch plus an overhead squat. With the clean and jerk, it's clean pull, clean front squat, and a jerk. And again, 3 seconds paused in the catch of the jerk. So we're pushing that heavy, but we've got limiters on there. The clean pull acts as a limiter. The front squat acts as a limiter. And the 3-second pause in the catch of the jerk and in the snatch acts as limiters. Like they prevent you from doing a truly max effort. Sorry, not max effort. A truly 101% intensity lift. So that's what we've got today. And then, of course, we're going to finish it up. We've got some bodybuilding because it's got to be done. You've got to get bigger. You've got to get thicker. You've got to get peeled. So that's what we've got.
One thing I do want to say for everyone that might be following along is those overhead jerk lunges. My quads were fucking pumped after that. I had maybe the biggest quad pump I've had in a very long time. And that felt awesome. The GHDs, huge hamstring pump. The rows, get your back blown up. The rear delt flies, surprisingly, like my rear delts and traps felt great. I think we have a very well-rounded approach to assistance exercise selection. So I like that.
Agreed.
The thing I will say about the jerk really quickly on that clean and jerk complex for people that may be following along, who may be following along, don't recover from the split right away. Like with any jerk, just carrying that out. Like, make sure your footwork is good. I see too many people, they just have sloppy footwork working up. And then they miss a jerk because their footwork's shit. And it's like, I mean, what'd you expect? Like, you can't expect anything better. So I think with a program, when you're not directly interacting with people that much, you have to put those in. Like, sit in this spot until it's perfect.
Right.
So that's just an aside.
Yeah. Okay, this one was, you guys need to have a pose down. Not much of a question, but we'll have a pose down. I mean, Josh is going to lose, but we can give it a go.
Yeah.
One of them is, okay, things you've found training-wise with masters athletes, if you've got any experience. I've coached, or I do coach, a few masters athletes. They're all men. They're all mid to late 30s, early 40s, and they are all very strong. Very strong. All of them squat over 200 kilos. Some of them squat 240, some of them squat 250, but they're all very strong, but they just don't snatch and clean and jerk as much. With the masters athletes I try and convince them all to train 4 days a week, not 5. And just the nature of these guys being very strong, we just do so much technical and positional work. Like, I just don't need my guys who squat 250 to squat 260. And the amount of work that goes into getting them there, we could do it. If they wanted to just say, I just want to have a massive squat, the program would be different. But they want to improve their snatch and clean and jerk, and they only snatch 100 or 110 or something like that. So we're doing a lot of technical work. A lot of the guys were football players, American football players, so they're tight. So it's pausing in the bottom of snatches. It's pausing an inch off the floor. It's snatch balances literally twice a week for most of the guys, Mondays and Thursdays. The Thursday is just higher volume at 90% of their Monday. It's a lot of technical work, and that's what I like. It's no foots, it's no contacts, depending on what the deficiency of the athlete is. But general themes amongst masters athletes, your speed is the thing that's going to drop off, whereas your strength is going to remain, and you can actually get stronger. So if you're already very technically proficient as a masters athlete, then trying to maintain speed is still worth trying to get continually stronger. It's the one thing that you can definitely improve on until you're mid 40s or whatever. You can just get a bigger squat, a bigger deadlift, and that will hopefully to some extent try and counteract the loss in speed that you just naturally get as you age.
No, I think that's a great answer. The only thing I would say to it is, from what I know, from what I've seen, maybe do shorter duration workouts, a little higher intensity. Just try and spread everything a little thinner throughout the week. That way you can kind of recover from smaller sessions instead of having like these big, huge overloading sessions and just being down in the dumps. That's really all I can add to that.
Right. Agreed. Let's just do one more very quickly. This is a question about belts. Belts like the Shake 3004 versus the leather belts. This is from Andre Benoit. He's seen lots of guys wearing nylon belts at Worlds. Why are they wearing these? Why aren't they wearing leather? He kind of presumes that leather would be more supportive. So I've lifted with both, but I lift with a leather belt. The reason for me doing so is kind of trivial. My girlfriend bought me a really nice white leather Eleiko belt for my birthday, like 2-3 years ago, and I love it because it says Eleiko on it and it's leather and it's mine, so I wear it. The thing with the leather belts is initially they're a little bit sharp. They kind of pinch you a bit. They don't feel that comfortable. And then the more you wear them, they just mold to your body, and eventually they get soft in the right places, and they mold to the way you are and the way you squat, and they just fit you like a glove. Like, it's amazing. The downside of them, and this is where the plus side of the nylon belts, the kind of Velcro ones, is that with the leather, it's always with a buckle, and so you're limited by how tight you can have it. Like, it's either very slightly too tight or it's not quite tight enough, and it's not often that it's completely perfect. With the Velcro belts, you put it however you want to put it. And from my way I've seen it is you can get the neoprene ones, the nylon ones tighter. I feel the Velcro ones, I feel like I can get those like unbelievably tight. I don't want to, because I don't think you need to. In fact, you don't need to get them super tight, but you just got a little bit more fluctuation with the Velcro, with the nylon, and easier to put on and off. But I like the leather myself.
Yeah, I think the downsides with the Velcro belt, the Velcro tends to stop sticking after so long. So like mid rep, it's going to pull off unless you have one with a buckle, which is very frustrating, very annoying. Right. I mean, it's kind of cool though, because you're like, okay, I did a set of 5 with a belt, and then I did a set of 5 after without a belt, so that's a PR. Yeah. And I'm all about PRs. But
you are.
I personally prefer leather. I've used both. Again, it's the reliability. Do I notice a difference? No. Would I say you need one or the other? No. It's really personal preference. That's why you see people with both at a high level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I agree. It's like heel height.
Yeah.
Should I wear the Romelios or should I wear the Adidas? It's like, well,
which feels better?
I mean, there are world champions who wear both, so whichever ones you like more.
Yeah.
If you've got really bad ankle mobility, maybe grab the Romelios. If you've got narrow feet, grab the Adidas. Like, just whatever works. Neither are better. They both work well. Speaking of nylon, neoprene clothing, all that sort of stuff, I did want to mention quickly. You've seen these. I want to get professional photos done. I'm getting that done soon. But I have got new Weightlifting House apparel on the website, which is pretty cool. I don't know if it's up on the European store yet, but it will be. It's certainly up on the USA. 3 new styles of Weightlifting House t-shirt. We've got one with just the logo on the front. It's got like a nice distressed vintagey look, big logo. We've got one, it's, Weightlifting House, the home of weightlifters. We've got one with a nice new WH logo. We've even got hoodies, navy, athletic, heathery gray kind of looking. Get that with a big logo distressed on the front or just a WH on the chest. Like, we've got a lot of cool stuff up there now. And of course, we've still got the Pizarenko squatting t-shirt and the Naeem jerking t-shirt. Did you see the phone cases that I mocked up?
Oh yeah, those look
I'm gonna
great.
do that. I'm gonna do those, but I'm gonna do like a limited number because I don't know whether I just want, like, the idea of selling phone cases is just so unnecessary. But because they look so cool, the one with Simon Kalecki on it, the one with Krapati in black and white with his quads, look like this is so cool. So I'm going to make some of those and sell them at some point. Partly because I want one, and I figure other people will as well. But yeah, I'm excited. I've got a lot of cool things that are in the pipeline that will be spread out periodically over the next few months, but some cool stuff.
Yeah, and you don't sponsor any athletes, so if people are looking for a way to get a discount, is there any opportunity for that?
Yeah, I don't. Well, I haven't. I know obviously you get a big one because you're part of Weightlifting House.
Yeah.
So as long as you cover manufacturing costs, that's how you get it. But yeah. For Patreon people, 10%.
There we go.
Was it 15? I can't remember what it was. It's 10 or 15. And that's on everything. That's like bars as well, like t-shirt. That's
a huge discount on bars.
I know. Well, that's the issue. That's the issue. Is I initially said no, we shouldn't do that, and then Dan, who helps me with the website stuff, he said, "Oh, just do it for bars as well." And I said, "But people are going to sign up on the $1. They're going to get a discount code. They're going to get $40 off a bar, and then they're going to leave." And he was like, "Well, if that happens too much, then we can get rid of it, but." If it makes people buy a bar, then like, who cares? But yeah, of course, that discount code's there on Patreon. Josh, we leave this one here.
Yeah, I think it was pretty good.
This has been a fun show. It's been a really good show. Of course, guys, if you listen to us and you want to watch us, we do now have the YouTube channel, Weightlifting House on YouTube. You can watch this interview or this episode of the Morning Brew there, as well as the many other interviews. We've got Dr. Andy Galpin. We've got John Kiley. On Monday, we'll be putting up the video and the podcast of Kate Nye, once Kate Vibert. We've got a bunch. And, of course, all the other Morning Brews are up on there as well. They're just set to private, so you guys can't see them. But if you want to see what Josh looks like without a beard, then head over to the YouTube page, and you'll see him there. Josh, anything you want to say before we end this week's episode?
Yeah, I think we were talking about putting up the Vladimir Safonov Q&A session on the YouTube, which will be available for Patreon supporters, right?
Yeah, exclusive, yeah. That's true. Someone messaged me about the Bodhi podcast, which is strange because it's like 6 months ago, but that he wanted to know when that was out. I said it's not ever going to be out, but that, of course, is on Patreon. And you did an episode on nutrition.
Yeah, with Greg Ferris.
Greg Ferris.
So he has just, I don't know how many people are going to know who he is. Masters in dietetics. He was an intern with the Philadelphia Eagles. He's worked with, Bob from the weightlifting camp, the Penn camp. Yeah. So his wife now,
most
future wife,
guy ever.
Greg, works with her, and she's like a really
she's
good
a CrossFit
CrossFitter.
Games athlete. Yeah. Yeah,
So,
she's been to the games for like 3 years in a row.
Yeah, just freakish. She almost jerked 117.
Oh god.
Yeah, and she like ended up dropping it off the blocks. Katie sent me a video. It's kind of funny.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's an insider scoop right there. But
nice. But yeah, that's just on Patreon as well. Yeah. So that we do put up not just the Morning Brew, but of course there are a few other little podcasts that we do with a few athletes and coaches that just go on there. We've done a poor job mentioning it whenever we do it, but we'll take this opportunity to do it. Guys, of course, please do follow Josh on Instagram, Josh_PhilWL. That's PhilWL, short for philosophical. We've got to change that to the people scientist. And follow me on Instagram, Seb Ostrovich. Ostrovich is IWICZ at the end. And, of course, weightlifting_house. That's about it, isn't it, Josh?
Yeah, for our American listeners, that is a Z on the end. For people who may not understand that, we don't do that.
You don't do Zs, yeah. I've noticed that you started at the end of every time you and I hang up on Skype, you try and say something British. So you said cheers for a long time, and I told you to stop. And then yesterday, when I hung up, you very quickly snuck in, thanks, mate. And just the way you said it, I knew it wasn't right. Like, I just knew that you'd never said mate before. But mate is like, that's what you say. Cheers, mate. That is the ending of every conversation in the UK. Cheers, mate.
Yep. Cheers, mate.
But that was awful.
All right, mate.
All right, cool. Interesting expression there. Okay, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you weren't too turned off by this last 30 seconds of rambling, but we appreciate your ear, and we'll catch you all, of course, on Monday's episode of the Weightlifting House podcast with the one and only Kate Nye.